Welcome to another amazing episode of Health Up with your host, Anthony Harcher. Health Up seeks to inspire and enlighten the well-being of others. Today we are blessed to have with us a Lightning Process Practitioner. Her name's Amanda Sully. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you very much, Anthony. Great to be here.
So Amanda specialises in helping those who suffer chronic fatigue. And today we're going to be talking more about how Lightning Process can help those with chronic fatigue. So Amanda, please share with us how you've arrived to what you're doing today.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. So I've been interested in health for 30 years, for a really, really long time. I've always been interested in all sorts of different health modalities, and I've been on a bit of a long health journey myself. And a couple of years ago, one of my best friends in England, her son got chronic fatigue. Well, 3 years ago now. He had giardia and then didn't kind of recover from that and ended up having to be taken out of school. He was bedridden for 2 years, aged 14 to 16. And Sarah tried everything. I mean, she took him to all sorts of different practitioners, from traditional medicine through to alternative stuff. She spent thousands trying to sort him out, but nothing worked. And then she heard about this course, the Lightning Process, and funnily enough, she heard about it a year in to his illness and dismissed it, and was just sort of saying, because it works with the mind and the body, and she was like, oh, it's nothing to do with his mind, it's to do with his gut. No thanks. Another year went past, and then she heard about it again, and this time it sort of resonated with her, and she was like, yeah, this is what's going to fix him. And so she took him on the 3-day Lightning Process course, and very shortly after that, he got his life back, started going back to school, started playing rugby again. And I was just blown away. I mean, I've heard about obviously all sorts of different health modalities helping people with different conditions, but for me, I was like, and for Sarah, it was just like, wow, that's just an amazing transformation in a really short space of time. So that was the catalyst for me and Sarah training to become Lightning Process practitioners. So she's working in the UK and I'm over here in Australia.
Wow, that's an incredible success story. It's, inspirational. I can see how you've got attracted to doing what you're doing. So I'm really intrigued as to what it is and how it works.
Sure. So Lightning Process itself, it's a classroom training, so it's not therapy. We're very much clear to say this is a training course. You'll be learning a tool that you can then put into action, that you can use in all different areas of your life, but mainly to do with your health is obviously what people come for. It's a 3 half-day training, and it's standardized throughout the world. So whichever Lightning Process practitioner you see in the whole of the world, you will always get the same training. And the Lightning Process essentially works with the science of the mind-body connection. And it's based on sort of one main sort of concept, which is the stress response, the fight or flight response that our bodies have when it's perceived some kind of threat. And we actually call this the physical emergency response, because sometimes when you say stress response, people think emotional stress, and we're not talking about emotional stress here, we're talking about physical stress, so a bit like the stress of a lorry on a bridge type of thing. So when the body perceives this threat, the sympathetic nervous system is switched on as if we're kind of about to fight or flee from a tiger, that sort of thing. And so all these symptoms, all these I can't think responses in the body get turned on. All these responses in the body get turned on so that we can fight the tiger or we can flee the tiger. But when all of this is turned on, it also turns off what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the part which heals the body, which switches on the immune system, which is to do with sleep and all these things, because these are things you don't need when you're running away from a tiger. And for some reason, when people activate this, maybe it's to do with a virus that they get, or they've had some kind of trauma, or toxins, this can set the body off into this fight or flight, this physical emergency response. And then for some reason, with some people, this gets stuck and it doesn't actually, because this is designed to be a really short-term response and then switch off again. But actually with some people, this is continually perpetuated. And then because of that, all of the good stuff, all the healing side has been turned off. And so obviously when that happens over a long period and the immune system's been sort of not closed off, but has been sort of, you know, put to one side, the healing, the sleep, all of those sort of kind of things have been sort of temporarily turned off while we're in this state. So over a long period, that then has massive impacts across the body, which obviously affects people's health and well-being. So the lightning process essentially teaches people how to spot when this PER, when this physical emergency response is happening. It shows them how to calm that down and how to kind of reset the body system. So then the healing part can kind of start kicking in again and everything can kind of get back to homeostasis, which is where the body loves to be. You know, the body loves to be in that kind of balanced state. So that's the idea behind it all. I mean, the other thing I would say, sorry, Anthony, the other thing I would say is that we work very much with the neuroplasticity of the brain. So sort of years ago, they used to think the brain was hardwired and we couldn't change it. But we now know and have known for a while that it actually is plastic, that we can actually change those brain's pathways. So again, we're working with people to be able to switch on the more helpful pathways and switch off maybe the ones that they've been kind of running for a while, which again, all impacts the body. So we're changing the physiology through working with the neurology, basically. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, so is it a number of techniques that you use? Like, is there, like, if you've got a toolkit and you apply a different technique to, or is it a particular process? So it's more like you've learnt the technique and then you teach the client the technique on how to apply it. So how's it administered? So obviously you're a master of this lightning process, and do the clients actually need to go and do the training course, or you just help them in terms of how they can apply this technique once they have this awareness that their emergency response system is switched on?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, just to kind of go back to the beginning in terms of if somebody's looking to do the lightning process course. So the first step of the lightning process is actually to download and listen to an audio, which is on the main lightning process website. And I've got links to that on my website. And this is a sort of 4 to 5 hour audio, and you can select it for the different conditions. So there's one on pain, there's one on chronic fatigue, that sort of type of thing. I think it's about 4 different ones. So you select the one that's appropriate for you and you listen to that. So that's about $30. And that's the first step of the process anyway. So even through listening to the audio, people will have some aha moments, you know, kind of like, oh, right, okay, I wasn't aware that I was kind of, you know, doing that or thinking in that way, or whatever. So that initially will start to kind of wake up some of people's neurology. And then once they've done that, that will give them a really good idea of a bit of the fundamentals of the lightning process, and then they'll get a feeling if that resonates for them, and they're like, oh yeah, I can understand how that would work for me now. And so then they would come and do the 3 half-day course. And the initial part of that is basically training a lot about how the brain-body connection works, how we can influence the body by using our mind, you know, all of these sort of type of things. So there's quite an educational piece to it. And then I teach them a sort of step-through process, which they can use for all different states that they wish to get into. So if they want to get into a more calm state, they can use it for that. If they want more confidence or more energy, you know, so they do it for lots of different states. So it's kind of the same process, but it can be applied across pretty much most things that they want to do. So as I say, you can use it beyond health. So people can sort of use it to resolve their health issues. And then they can also use it for lots of other things in life, like, oh, I'm going for an interview or want to feel more confident, you know, so you can use it for that. So it's kind of got a multitude of uses. But yeah, so effectively I'm teaching them how to put it into practice themselves, and then they basically go off and do it after they've done the 3 half-day course. They go off and they kind of use it in their lives and notice the
So I'm
changes.
just thinking, like, in terms of those other useful ways, given that it's centered around turning off that sympathetic nervous response and switching it to the parasympathetic response, and, you know, helping that rest and digest function, as well as helping that creative thinking and, you know, all those creative connections within the brain. I was thinking, is it something you can apply before you go into a meeting, or is it, you know, before you do a talk? So if, you know, if you're in a high pressure situation and presenting in front of 500 people, for example, is it something you could apply to yourself just before you walk on stage?
Yeah, I did it before I did this.
Yeah.
I did it for calm confidence. But yeah, absolutely. And I use it for all sorts of different things. So yeah, definitely. And that's why it's awesome. And also Jack, my friend's son, there's a video of him on my website, and he talks about that at the end, where he just says, you know, he uses it for his sport now. He plays a lot of rugby, and for just, yeah, as you say, just for other things in life. So you can use it for all sorts of things. And once you come on the course, it's quite interesting, because people then sort of kind of go, oh, I could use it for that. Oh, I hadn't really thought about that. Oh, you know, you start kind of going, wow, yeah, I can just use it for everything. So yeah, you're right.
So how long does it take to apply the technique in terms of application? Like, so if I, you know, I was about to do it, or you're about to jump on this podcast, for example, and how much time do you need to allow for you to get the benefit, and how quickly does the benefit come?
That's a really good question. And it can take sort of like a few minutes. I mean, essentially, when we're triggering the sympathetic nervous system, we're also triggering a lot of stress hormones as well. And so the stress hormones, we can almost think of it a bit like having alcohol in the blood. You know, it takes a while to calm down and to sort of like dissipate. So, you know, we'll do the process, and then we might sort of say, you know, divert. It's not like I'll do the process and immediately it's changed, but actually fairly quickly after that, you do notice that you kind of calm down and that things do change. I wouldn't put a specific time on it, but maybe like 20 minutes, or I don't know, but sort of, you know, half an hour, that sort of type of time. I mean, some people will notice straight away things will start to change, but yeah, on the basis that the hormones have kind of built up, you sort of, as I say, they take time to calm down as well. So the quicker, I mean, what we would always say is the quicker you can recognize when you're switching on the stress response, the better, because then you can kind of get in there and calm everything down before it sort of kind of builds up, if you see what I mean. So, and that's one of the things that we teach people on the course, is to kind of recognize when you're getting into that pattern, to kind of be able to sort of stop it and change your physiology and move on, sort of thing.
So it's to, you know, you're applying the methodology to the person's thinking in terms of those thoughts they have, in terms of, is it I'm just thinking, like, are they looking at a particular person? That person, you know, is someone that's not on their good book, so to speak, and that sends them off and sends the response. And so is it you're then reframing that thinking process about that person, or how are you? What's going on within the mind in terms of applying the process?
I'm not quite sure what you meant there. Sorry, what were you? So are you saying how you react to somebody? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just, is it like a, you know, I guess, is it a, it doesn't matter what causes the stress response, it's a tool that you can apply to dampen anything. Is that what you're applying the skill for?
Yeah, so basically you're sort of choosing the state that you sort of want to be in effectively, and how you're going to be reacting to something. So, so as I say, you know, if you're going to be doing a big presentation, you sort of think, oh, I just want to have that calm confidence. And so you kind of do the process to have that kind of calm confidence. Or if you're about to kind of go for a run and you just want loads of energy, you can do the process to kind of get yourself into that really energetic state and just get the body kind of ready for that. So is that what you mean? Sorry, I was kind of...
Yeah, so it's changing that state of how you're feeling about something into a more productive state.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
and just kind of recognizing when you're kind of going into that sort of like negative thinking, when you're programming those negative pathways, to kind of go, right, okay, I just need to recognize what I'm doing here, stop and choose to do something more positive, and kind of wire new pathways that are going to be more helpful for your health. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I understand. So over longer periods of time of applying this technique, a lot of these unresourceful habits of, you know, something triggering that thought or whatever, you can far greater turn that off, that reaction, that response to that, so intercept it earlier, or that trigger doesn't happen anymore because you've totally re-diverted, you know, or I guess drawn a better, more productive connection or association to that event.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So effectively, we're starting for the brain to kind of recognize, when this happens, I feel like this. When this happens, I feel like this, you know, and to sort of, like you say, to just switch going down different pathways. And the brain learns like really super quickly. And that's the thing with neuroplasticity. We would sort of say it's always on. Be conscious that neuroplasticity is always on. So the brain is always paying attention to what's going on. So the more you can kind of keep diverting it into a pathway that you want it to go down, like you say, it just learns that way, and then it just starts to become neuroplastically wise. The nerves start to kind of move closer together because the brain likes to be super helpful, and then it's like the super highway. It can just run really easily going in a different direction. But unfortunately, for people who are stuck with a health condition, it's been running like a super highway in the wrong direction. So we just need to change those pathways, those highways, and then things just change themselves. So yeah, you're absolutely spot on, Anthony. Well done. Good stop the class.
I was just thinking, we've had a few other practitioners on here that do NeuroLinguistic programming, and it sounds somewhat aligned or similar to how NeuroLinguistic programming works. Is there some connection with NeuroLinguistic programming, or it's different entirely?
Yes, I would say it's broader than NLP, but there are NLP elements in it. There's sort of different, there's elements of coaching, there's different elements involved in it. And, but yes, in order to do the training to become a Lightning Process Practitioner, we have to do the clinical diploma in NLP, life coaching and hypnotherapy, and also master NLP as well before we qualify to do the training as a Lightning Process Practitioner. So we need to have those kind of NLP skills, but it is, it's more than just saying it's an NLP based course, because we've had NLP practitioners come and do the Lightning process, and yeah, it's different to that, but there is a little bit in there. So again, well
right,
said.
And who do you find best response to this sort of process, the Lightning process? Like, who gets the best results? I mean, what type of people are they? Who is it for?
I mean, it works really well for lots of different health conditions, because essentially with this PER stress response, that just impacts lots of different areas, lots of different systems in the body, which can affect lots of different health conditions. I mean, I would say probably the top 4 that people come for would be chronic fatigue, chronic pain, anxiety and depression. I don't know if they've actually ever listed which, but like that, those are the ones that we tend to sort of probably talk a bit more about. But there's many health conditions that people have come and done the Lightning process for. So those tend to be ones that we're probably known a bit more for. But yeah, there's heaps, because it can be really helpful, as I say, resetting that kind of stress response in the body just has effects.
It makes you more resourceful in terms of, you can better think about a more appropriate response as opposed to a knee-jerk response because you're reacting to a situation. So it's really applicable in the workforce. I can see, within meetings and within presentations and before present, all that. I can see it being very useful in terms of getting the person in that more creative, resourceful state to perform, essentially.
Yeah, totally. Because obviously when we're running away from the tiger, all we need to think about is how do I get out of here, which is a quick exit, blah, blah, blah. You know, we don't need to think creatively in that instance, like you say. So as soon as we switch that off, and then our brain can be like, oh, now I've got a bit more capacity to think more broadly about things. And now I'm going to compose my little sonnet now.
And how can viewers and listeners best reach you?
So I would say through my website. That's probably the easiest thing. I spent a very long time doing my website because I wanted it to have a lot of information for people. So I wanted it to be a bit of a one-stop shop that people could go there and just sort of read it all and hopefully digest it. But equally, I'm totally happy for people to phone me up and have a chat for 20 minutes, whatever, to talk about what they're going through at the moment and whether they think the Lightning process is right for them. And but I would say, so my website is mindbodywealth.com, and on there also is the, as I say, the links to the audio. So if people want to kind of have a bit of toe in the water, just sort of see what it's all about, then as I say, I think the audios are absolutely fantastic and people really, really love those. So that's just a really great way to start if you wanted to do that first. Well, you need to do that before you do the course anyway, but I mean, that just is a great place to start, I think.
Great. So mindbodywealth.com.
Yes.
Yep, fantastic. And
your
what's
health
your
is
number
your
one
wealth.
tip? Yes, absolutely. And keen to hear your number one tip for health and well-being.
Well, one of the things we talk about in the Lightning process is, the power of your language. And often with people that are stuck with some health condition or another, they're often speaking in a specific way. And we would always sort of say to when you're talking about what you want, to focus on what you do want as opposed to what you don't want. So as opposed to saying, I don't want to be tired, to say, I want to be energized, or I want to have energy. Or instead of saying, I don't want to feel anxious all the time, to say, I want to feel calm. Because this sends a different message to the brain. So again, it's really important to use this sort of kind of language, and also not to say things like, I want to be pain-free, because then the brain sort of hears pain and goes off on its little pathway thinking about pain. So again, instead of saying I want to be pain-free, you might also say, I want to feel comfortable in my body, or something like that. So just think about that in terms of asking for what you do want as a positive. And the other thing as well is just being kind to yourself. And this is something that we sort of talk about in the Lightning process as well. It's all really about that kind of kind, compassionate coaching to ourselves. Do you speak to yourself like you would speak to your best friends? And most people would say no. If you spoke to your best friends like you spoke to yourself half the time, you probably wouldn't have any friends. So again, just really be kind to yourself. Phil always says, think of your brain as kind of like a little puppy dog. You want to speak to it kindly, because if we shout at it and get, it's all a bit scared, and the brain's a bit like that. So it's just kind of, just be kind, speak to yourself kindly, be compassionate to yourself, because that goes a really long way in terms of your health as well. So there's lots around language, but that would, a couple of things there.
Great tip. Excellent. So focus on what you want, and really be kind and look after, treat yourself like you treat others.
Exactly. Be your own best friend.
So, exactly. So really, thank you so much, Amanda, for passing on, sharing your knowledge about the Lightning process. It's been enlightening to me in terms of what it is, what's it applicable to, when and why you might be using it, and it's really that lifelong tool once you learn. So it's something that you can take through for the rest of your life. It's not, it's not I guess a pill that you take for a period of time. You don't have it, but it's a lifelong skill that you're learning, this Lightning process. So I recommend people get in touch with Amanda via her website, mindbody.com. And thanks again, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.